when he got back with his wife, for a minute, his wife was, or I wouldn't say a minute, but like when he first got back with her, she was still operating in the old paradigm. So she was still bringing in that struggle. So on the next session we had after he'd gotten back with her, he tells me about this. So I give him a couple things to do. And within that week, between that session and the next session, he does the things and his wife transforms. So I never coached his wife. I just coached him, and he just became he did what I suggested, and she totally transformed. So now their relationship is joyful and full of appreciation and sexy and fun and playful, and a totally different relationship than they've ever had. It's the relationship they both had wanted, but never knew how to get to.
Hi, everybody. I am so super excited because I get to visit with Karen Lorre today. This is like really special. I've known her for, I feel like a really long time, but we've never really connected face to face. I guess this is face to face. It would be so cool if it was person to person physically, but we're not doing that right now. But as many of you know, I'm doing these little fun interviews with people that I've connected through my business coaching program. We all are authors, and we all have our program. I don't even want to call it programs, what we want to bring to the world. It's how we want to open our hearts and just share with the world. And so this is a group of authors, and many of them said, yeah, I'll raise my hand. I'd love to have you interview me. And then I'm just sharing it across my platforms, and hopefully that it just connects for all of you. So Karen, let me tell you first, thank you. I am so appreciative of having you here.
Thank you. It feels wonderful to be with you, Pat, and feel happy to connect with your wonderful people. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me tell you a little bit about Karen, okay? So Karen studied psychology.
No, psychobiology.
Oh, psychobiology. I'm sorry. My eyes got that wrong. Thank you. Thank you. How the mind affects the body. And she did that in college. And she's had a lifelong interest in psychobiology, epigenetics, which I love, neuroscience, health, and spirituality. So it's kind of that whole package. And she studied the science of mind since 1985. Now you would look at her and think, no, she was like way too young in 1985 to even be thinking about stuff like this. But this is the beauty of all the work that she does, is she just keeps getting younger and younger and younger. And she can teach us all about that. She's been meditating consistently since 1991, and she studied the law of attraction since 2009. So she truly has immersed herself, and her whole being is about all of this. While she was still in college, she had a natural gift for receiving direct communication and downloads from the infinite loving divine and intuitive clarity. Karen is an actress and has done over 1,000 hours of TV, films, and commercials. One life to live. Correct? You can speak, Karen. You can speak.
I didn't know that was a question. Yes, I did One Life to Live for 4 years, but lots of other shows.
Lots of other things too, but for people that are soap opera fans, you may recognize her.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say one of the Tinas, because there was quite a few.
Oh, Tina morphed a bit.
Tina morphed. She had life transformational experiences.
As we all do, yeah. So as an actress, Karen observed how she enjoyed playing different characters, and she found that her body would respond in different ways. And so she had some pretty intense emotional and physical challenges that caused her to seek answers. And once she starts telling her story and she talks about her books, you absolutely have to read her books, because there's so much amazing information, and just hearing her story is, it's not even amazing. It's just like so incredible and so deep, and just so much there.
Hmm.
This led her to discovering ways to transform. She had a lot of challenges with fatigue and pain, and she learned to transform that into what she says vibrant energy and chronic pleasure. That's what Karen's all about. The more you get to know her, you just start wanting to get into this energy with her. So she now lives in chronic pleasure and pure love, which I know for a fact, and has all the energy she needs to do what she wants. She has no stress. Nothing is challenging for her now. And her work has been endorsed by some of the people that are pretty notable. Dr. Deepak Chopra, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. John Jaquish, is that how you say it?
Jaquish.
Jaquish, Gay Hendricks, and many, many more. She's had a very storied life, even outside of her acting career, that she can maybe talk a little bit about. But again, Karen, it's just a joy to have you here and to help you share with whoever's listening throughout all the platforms that we're on a little bit about yourself. So I guess I would like you to just start, because you are the intuitive. What is it you would really like to share today with us? And let's kind of go down that path a little bit.
Well, um, I know a lot of people suffer when someone dies or if someone gets hurt or when something happens. And I know we have this whole situation going on in America and probably other places in the world where people like Black people who have been persecuted and had incredible injustice, where they're suffering and where there's some police brutality. Not every policeman is that way, but some policemen are doing that. And so I know that grief comes from so many different ways. And one of the things that I've recognized is that when I had an experience where I lost my father passed away, my best friend slash ex-boyfriend killed himself,
Mm.
and I got subpoenaed to be in a trial against a church I went to when I was just a teenager, just for part of the youth group, because the minister had been a pedophile and all of the counselors that he hired had been a pedophile. And so all of this kind of conspired, and I was in such a state of grief about my dad and then about Johnny was the man who killed himself, that I couldn't function. And I remember, people would call me and I'd say, I can't, whatever it was, I couldn't make plans. I couldn't commit to anything because I just didn't know how I would feel. And I had no energy. My body got so weakened. And because of the way I've studied, where I've studied psychobiology, which is how the mind affects the body, epigenetics and meditation and a little bit of neuroscience and all these different things, what I started to realize, and because of my experience with acting, where I literally saw the world shift when I was a different character and my body shift when I was a different character. And I saw this happen so consistently as an actress, because sometimes you're playing one character one week, another character another week, another character another week, then you have a break for a couple weeks, and then you play another character, and every character is different. And I would notice how just being a specific type of character, let's say I was playing a character in grief, the world responded to me one way. When I'm playing a character who's happy, the world responded another way. When I play a character who's bitchy, the world responded in another way. And I really got that it had nothing to do with the world. It had to do with what I was emanating in the world. And so I, when I was feeling all that grief, I didn't know what I know now. But what ended up happening at a certain point, and I stayed in that grief for probably a decade. And I wanted to kill myself. It was just so debilitating to feel that kind of intense sadness. And then at a certain point, I'd had the experience of being very intuitive since I remember it since I was in college. It probably happened before, but I didn't pay any attention to it. And I started to perceive the presence of Johnny, the ex-boyfriend, best friend who had killed himself. And I perceived him, and what he explained to me, and I was still sick at the time. I got really sick because the grief that I had experienced, it cannibalized my body. It took away my energy. I got diagnosed with narcolepsy. My adrenals were so depleted that the doctor said he'd never seen worse adrenals in 30 years. Um, and uh, and my thyroid was off, and my hair was thinning, and my eyes, I had to wear glasses to read, and I had so many things going on. There was much more than that. I had chronic pain. All of it was going on, and I had now at this point, I'd been married when my dad and when Johnny and the court case, all of that happened right kind of at the beginning of when I got married, and we were married for 10 years, but at this point we were getting divorced, and so I'm living in a small apartment, and I can barely get out of bed, but I'm I'm trying to feel better. And when I would be in that place where I would either just be waking up or just be falling asleep, I heard different energies communicating with me, or I felt them. I don't know if it was actually, sometimes it's audible, and sometimes it's just a knowing, and sometimes it's kinesthetic, and sometimes it's a vision. So one of the things that happened was I kept hearing Johnny, when we had been dating, and this was like when I was in my 20s, he had written a song for me that one of the Go-Go's sang. It was called I Feel the Magic. And he had told me he'd written it for me. Um, and so he would sing it to me all the time in real life. And so while I'm lying in this bed, kind of right between sleep and wake, before I started actually thinking my normal habitual thoughts of grief, I would hear this song, and I didn't understand why I was hearing it until maybe 8 or 10 months later, when I realized it was a way of Johnny to communicate with me. Johnny was in non-physical, and what he was communicating to me was that even though he had killed himself, and I had all these ideas that, oh, somebody who kills himself, they're going to be suffering in the afterlife. They're not going to, they're going to be in a lot of pain for, in the afterlife. And I just had imagined him like that. And what he said was that that was completely wrong. He actually said that and this is very controversial, so forgive me, and it might not sound like a very compassionate thing to say, but he was dead when he was saying it. So, and hopefully I interpreted it correctly. So I'll just say it and then whatever. But so he said that every death is a suicide. And I said, what do you, and he said, and everybody, when they die, they go into immediate love and joy and freedom. That everybody lets go of all the physical pain, the mental pain, resentments, fear, grief, sadness, anger, all of that stuff. And I remember thinking, wow, that's amazing. And I couldn't believe how his energy was so high and loving and happy. I could feel him, literally feel him being proud of me. And he would kind of communicate this understanding to me. And when I said to him, but every death is a suicide, what do you mean? And what I got was that everybody's they might not be conscious of the choice. And, we have a lot of desires that are unconscious, that we're not even aware that we're desiring them. And he said that even what's happening is a lot of times people will have some desire, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this. Oh, this is making me sick. I just don't, this sucks. This really, it's sickening what I'm doing, or it's sickening what that person is doing. And then their body listens to that and starts to become that. And Johnny said that every single person that has ever passed away has always gone into pure positive joy, and that they never have died accidentally. And I couldn't believe that, since I had so many people in my life that had passed away. And I just kept asking him about it, and he said people, they aren't conscious a lot of times of what they're wishing. So for example, one of my best friends, She just passed away almost a year ago. And she was my age. We looked a lot alike. People thought we were sisters, but she had an Austrian accent. She was from Austria. And she had a husband that she loved with all her heart, but she knew he was unfaithful and he kept giving her venereal diseases. And she had two children that were grown up and that she loved. And he worked far away from the like he worked in other countries. He was a director, and so he would be gone for sometimes months at a time, and she would go into anxiety because she knew he was having affairs, and she would ask him to stop it. She asked him to go get help and do all that stuff, and he went, but he didn't get the help he needed. And what she did was she pretended she was fine, but what she would tell me is, he makes me so sick.
Mm.
So what happened? She got sick. She got extremely sick, and she got pancreatic cancer,
Mm.
which is, the pancreas is what takes care of your insulin, which is what you do when, what you need when you're eating things that have sweetness and things that don't. Your pancreas monitors the sweetness
Right.
in your life. And so she was being, to the world, fake sweet, and her body was hearing her say, this makes me sick. I can't stand what he's doing. It's so sickening what he's doing. And she just got weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And I could see this happening. She would also go kind of AWOL for months at a time. So I wouldn't always have the ability to communicate with her. But one time when she was going AWOL, before she actually got sick, this is maybe 15 years ago, and she only got sick in the last, like, she died a year ago, and she got sick maybe a year and a half before that.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry if I'm talking so long.
No, this is beautiful. Thank you. I'm just
Okay.
mesmerized by it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So this was maybe 15 years ago, and I was home alone, and I was in that nappy, half nap, half awake state, and I got this message that I realized was from her dad. I'd never met her dad. He was dead before I ever met her, but I knew it was her dad, and he kept saying to me, "Tell her I'm proud of her. Tell her she did the right thing." And I was like, what? Tell her I'm proud of her. Tell her she did the right thing. And so I got out of bed and I tried to dial her phone number, but it went, she was in, I didn't know it, but she was in Austria. And so it just went to that weird dial that happens when you're dialing another country and they're not answering, and you can't leave a message.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to email her. And this was, 15 years ago, so maybe phones are better now. And this was before WhatsApp, or at least before I knew about WhatsApp.
Yep.
Anyway, um, so I email her and I said, hey, love, I'll just keep her anonymous since I was talking about her husband and everything. Hey, love, I think I got a message from your father, and he kept saying to tell you that he's proud of you. You did the right thing. He's proud of you. You did the right thing. So I don't hear from her. And then the next day, I get a phone call, and she's like, Karen. And I'm like, what's going on? And she said, I'm in Austria. And then she tells me this story about how when her father had died, he had given her, she has two brothers, and she has a brother and a sister, had given just her this particular house that had been in the family. And she had always felt guilty about that. So she was in Austria, and she had before, maybe a couple of years before, she had given her brother and her sister right the part of the to be part of the ownership. And now she'd found out that they'd been doing something that wasn't right, that was going to get her in trouble, something that was potentially illegal or something like that. I don't know the specifics of what it was,
Mm-hmm.
but she said that she had just signed the papers to remove them from ownership of the house, and she was taking back full ownership, and that she was in her hotel room crying on the bed, lying on the bed on her belly and saying, Daddy, please give me a sign I'm doing the right thing. I feel so terrible. Give me a sign I'm doing the right thing. Oh my God, I feel so terrible. So when her father was telling me to tell her, I'm proud of you, you did the right thing. I'm proud of you, you did the right thing, he was answering her prayer. So what she said to me was, she told me that whole story. And then she said, I got the email and I knew I had done the right thing. And she
Wow.
was so thankful. And she brought me all these flowers when she got back in the States. And we had this really great connection. And what was interesting is that when I was at her funeral last year, I met her family, and I had not met them before. I met her brother and her sister and their partners, and um, and I told them that story, and they all went white. And
Mm,
I said, what's going on? And they said, we always thought she was being selfish. We didn't know that she was being advised by our father.
wow.
And I saw them see how their resentment of her had been unnecessary. And so that kind of thing, where I've picked up the energy of someone who's non-physical, has happened so many times. Another time, um, just one of my clients, I coach people, I help people release unconscious blocks so they can have amazing, priceless results. But
Hmm.
one of my clients, her husband had died very suddenly. And she hadn't talked to me too much about it because we'd been dealing with just her specific things. So she hadn't talked to me about him too much. I didn't know much about him. But I was not working with her at the time, but I could feel him and I knew it was him. I don't know how I knew it was him. It's just a knowing. And I knew it was him. And he was singing the song. And I don't know this song actually, but it's Come On Baby, Let the Good Times Roll. So I don't know how it goes. But sorry, there's something in my eye. Um, but he was singing this song, and he just said, "Come on, baby, let the good times roll." And he kept singing just that one line over and over and over again. And I was like, I got that he wanted me to tell her that. So I texted her and I said, "Hey, I got a message from, I think it's from your husband. What did it say?" She says. And I said, "It says, come on, baby, let the good times roll." And then she doesn't text back for like 10 minutes. And then she's like, the phone rings and I pick it up and I'm like, hello? And she says, Karen, it's Kate. And I said, yeah, what's up? And she said, my husband and I sang that one line of that song to each other multiple times a day. As we would pass each other, if one was sitting down and reading, the other one was walking by, we just sing, we touch him lightly on the shoulder, come on, baby, let the good times roll. As we're
Wow.
making dinner, come on, baby, let the good times roll. As one of us wakes up, come on, baby, let the good times roll. And it happens so consistently that, of course, if that's his way of communicating with her that he's alive and well and come on, baby, let the good times roll, that she doesn't have to be, because she was struggling with the grief. And so what I've seen is that if the reason I've been able to contact or be in contact, be receptive, I don't really contact them. They seem to contact me.
Hmm. Yep.
But the reason that I've been able to do that is because you have to be in the same frequency as someone who is non-physical. Kind of like they're like a satellite, and you're like the radio station. And if you're on radio K grief, you cannot hear the station of radio K love. It's a different frequency. And so you have to turn the dial on your energy in a way to get into a place where you're more in a place of appreciation or love or fun or happiness. Kind of that energy is the energy of the people who have passed. Even babies, even puppies, even kittens, even
Hmm.
horses, anybody, children, grandparents, parents, everybody goes into this place. There's no middle place. Like there's no what do people call it, where they're like dead but they're not dead.
Limbo or
There's no limbo,
yeah.
none of that. It's just immediate. There's a principle in physics. It's one of the laws of thermodynamics, and the law is energy cannot energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed or transmuted. And I might be saying it slightly wrong, but that's the essence of the.
That's exactly right.
Oh, thank you. But that, yeah, so that's the essence of that thermodynamic law. And so the energy of me, the energy of you, the energy of Pat, the energy of all of us, we have a frequency that is our personality energy, and then we have the frequency of our spirit energy. And those two energies aren't always the same. They might be at two different frequencies. But when someone dies, it's just the energy of their spirit. You still know it's them, but it's the energy of their spirit. Another experience that happened, which is so funny, I was driving and I was just getting, my husband and I were just getting divorced, and our dog had passed away like a year before because animals take on our negative emotion. And so if you are dealing with grief and you have animals, another reason, besides just wanting to talk to the people that you've lost, another reason to get happy is because it'll make your animals healthier.
Mm-hmm.
um, but so, because animals are just, they want to support us. They're so amazing. But so our dog had died, and I was driving home late, and I had a car, like a sports activity vehicle. So it had like a large back part, and I heard a dog running in the back, but I don't have a dog in the car, right? So I pull over and I go look in the back of the car, and I don't see anything. It's empty. And I get back in the car, and I haven't started it yet. I'm still parked, and I feel the energy of my dog. His name was Reuben, and I feel him all over, licking my face, licking my face, licking my face. And I'm like, Ruby, oh my God, it feels so good to see you or feel you. I love you so much. How are you? And then he kept saying to me that I have to call my ex-husband because he's going to get a dog and the dog is going to be him. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell him that. I was like, no, he already thinks I'm a whack job. I'm not going to do that. So I kept saying, no, no, no. And I go to bed that night, and he's still like licking me all over. You got to call him. You got to call him. You got to call him. So I wake up in the morning, and I'm supposed to go play on the beach with some friends. And I hear Ruben, you got to call him. You got to call him. You got to call him. And I'm like, oh. And so I was like, all right, fine. So I pick up the phone, and I call my ex-husband on his cell phone, and he answers the phone. And he said, and I said, hi, is this an okay time to interrupt? And he said, yeah. He goes, I'm just in the car with his daughter. I'm just in the car with her. I said, oh, that's great. I said, I think I got a message from Ruben. And he's like, what'd he say? And I said, he said you're going to get a dog, and it's going to be him. There's a long silence. And then he goes, we're driving to Santa Barbara to pick up a dog. And I got off the phone as quick as I could. And so Ruben was right. I needed to call him to let him know that Ruben was coming back, that it was going to be Ruben. And the thing that I've seen over and over again, I had another experience the other day, a couple of weeks ago. Well, it was probably before the coronavirus thing, so it was maybe a couple of months ago. And I was out with somebody that I hadn't known before. I just had met him, and we were talking, and he said that his wife had passed away a year ago. And I said, oh wow. I said, how are you doing with that? And he said, I miss her every day. And I said, do you ever feel her presence? And he said, no, not at all. And then I just looked at him and I said, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And he looks at me, his eyes go wide, and he says, her name was Merrily. And I have a picture of her on my bedside, and the frame says, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And I look at that picture every day, and I miss her. And he was like white. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I go, maybe we connected with her. And he's like, and he starts crying. And it was so beautiful. And then yeah, so like that kind of stuff, whether it's dogs or people, I've had it so many times that it's just become these so many stories of that kind of stuff. So what I'm trying to say through all of this is that there is no death. What we call death is really energy being transformed from physical into a non-physical energy. And that energy of who we are has a signature that is somehow knowable, but it's not the personality of the person in the sense of it doesn't have any of the same resentments, none of the same limiting beliefs, none of the fears, none of the concerns, none of the anger, none of the physical symptoms. It is in a place of total wholeness and freedom and wellness. And I know this for myself, and I'll just stop talking after this little bit. But when I was in my teens, I was asked to do a modeling job on a sailboat and I had sailed to Hawaii. I know the ocean. I lived on the ocean. I like the ocean. I'm not afraid of the ocean. I feel great in that thing. But they wanted me to do something called spinnaker flying, which I'd never done before. And I have weighed most of my life about 108 pounds. So it's a gusty day. There's about 40 knot winds, which is a strong wind, in case you don't know knots. And I don't know how to do the math of it, so it's 40 knots. You can look it up. Anyway, it's a big wind. And as they're preparing the shot, I'm getting makeup on and I have a bathing suit on, and this guy goes up and he weighs probably 280, 290, maybe 300 pounds. And he goes up and he's bouncing on this thing. And it's basically a spinnaker flying is where the spinnaker is a really, if you watch a sailboat, it's the sail that's the most balloony. It's like such a balloony, beautiful sail. And it's taking the one point is attached to the top of the mast, and then the 2 points are attached to a swing. And so it creates like a triangle. So you're in the triangle. So he's in this triangle and he's holding on and he's bouncing around. And then he gets off and he comes back to the boat and he goes, "Oh man, you're gonna love it. It's great. It's a little rough. You got to hold on, but you're gonna love it." So I said, "Okay, great." So I get onto the swing and then they let go, and maybe I didn't have enough of a hold, or maybe I didn't have enough weight, but for whatever reason, the the sail, instead of being this way and lofting me up, it went like this, and then it whipped me down onto the ocean from above the mast, and it was a 55-foot mast, so it was probably like a 60-foot whip onto my back onto the ocean. I couldn't breathe. I got all the wind knocked out of me. I swallowed water, and I started to go under. And there was a guy who jumped into the water, but he was afraid because the waves were pretty big to come towards me. So he's trying to throw a lifesaver to me, but we're probably about 30 feet away, and the shore is maybe 250 feet away, and the boat is again 30 feet away. And I don't have any energy. I don't have any air. And so I'm going down, and I get down into the water, and at a certain point something shifted and I didn't care. And I was like, "Oh my God, this feels so good." And I just was feeling something within me just let go. And then I heard a voice, and I felt this beautiful feeling of everything being okay. All is well. I'm so loved. And then I hear this or feel this question: do you want to live, or are you ready to go? And I knew I wanted to live. I was 18. I still had so much I wanted to live. And the minute I had that thought, no, I want to live, this energy came through my body, and I shot up. I was probably, I don't know how much, but it was maybe like 12 or 15 feet under the water at this point. I just had been sinking low, and I somehow shot up through the water. The guy sees me. He hadn't seen me, I guess, for a few minutes. Throws the lifesaver again, and it's still 20 feet away. I don't know how I got to it. I got to it like that. I
Wow.
don't know if it felt like I flew over the water, but I don't know exactly what happened. All I know is that I was down there. I made a decision I wanted to live, and I got to that lifesaver in a way that I still have no idea how it happened. And he pulls the lifesaver in, then he puts me over his thing, climbs up the ladder to the boat, gets me on the boat. They have to pump my stomach first because I swallowed all this water, and then they give me mouth to mouth, and I can finally breathe. So I probably was like 8 or 9 minutes without oxygen. And so that's probably the closest near death experience I had. But after experiencing Johnny and Ruben and my friend's dad and all these other people, those people who are now non-physical have taught me how to be in an ever-present near-death experience.
Mm. I so love this, Karen. Yesterday I interviewed another one that is in our group, Dr. Petra Frege, and she talked about her near-death experiences, and you're telling the same stuff. I mean, it's the same thing that yes, we have a choice, but once we move to that, it's all light, it's all love, it's all just absolute beautiful, that yes, we want to be there, but we have so much to do here. And so to be sharing this, especially for those of you who know me, I work in the grief space. I work with people who are grieving the death of their children and their loved ones. And that's my sole purpose of coming here. And so this will interest you, Karen, um, this is in 2012. I had a brother who died before I was born, 6 years before I was born. And no one ever talked about him. It was just not something that was dealt with in the home at the time. But I found out about him, and I had this connection with this brother and would go to the cemetery and kind of hang out with him. My family didn't know I did this. I'm sure they would have probably put me away somewhere if they knew that. But in 2012, it would have been his 60th birthday, and my mom started allowing me to open up with her and to understand what was going on with her. And she shared about him. But I was on a plane. I was a corporate executive at the time. I was flying in a plane, going to our corporate offices, and I had this experience where it felt like I had an electrical shock that just went through my body. And this voice, not really a voice, but it sounded like a voice, said, "I was born through you." And I knew immediately it was my brother. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I kind of probably already knew that all these years, but it wasn't like, but there was a deep emotion that came over me. It was so beautiful because it was like, I'm here for a purpose. He left early, but in life, he was just a baby, 4 months old. But it was just such a beautiful awakening. And that's what I want all of the people who are grieving the death of their loved one, that there is no death. And that's, yes, we need to grieve. Grieving is a part of our healing process, right? That's part of some of the things that we need to do, but staying in it for any length of time to where we're not finding that joy, we're not having that purpose, we're not having fun, and doing all of that, it's almost like a disservice because our loved ones are here. And so once you can tap in and feel them, or to work with a Karen Lorre who can, most likely they're going to connect through her because she's at that vibration. She's at that high vibration where that your loved one can connect is so beautiful, and that's where I see the healing occurs when people are grieving, is once they finally get that connection, like that gentleman, that you're having dinner with. And it's like the veil opens, right? So what a beautiful, beautiful, I mean, you're just speaking my language. It's just, this is, if we could let everybody know that this is what it is. And while we're here, it really is to be about joy and to embrace our bodies and to embrace our lives, right? Yeah. So tell people what you do. What you work with people, and can you just give us a little bit, talk about the magic that you do working with people?
I help people release unconscious blocks so that they can really have an incredible life. I basically teach people how to live in a way like I do, where it's full of love. So I can give a couple of different examples of how that works for people in my life. So one client, he had been uh, married for 12 years, and now they were separated. And he had been, when he was a little boy, he'd been violated, sexually violated, and also given like drugs when he was like 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. And so he had this scarring And his marriage, he was married to a woman, and his marriage was just fraught with tension and awkwardness and anger and struggle and just a lot of pain because he was harboring things that he didn't even almost consciously remember because he'd been drugged, and he was so young. So he didn't really understand it, but he knew it had happened just because of there was a police report and his parents knew, and so it was there was something, but he'd never been able, and he was a psychologist, and he'd been to psychiatrists and psychologists and they hadn't helped. So I kind of help a lot of people that haven't been helped by regular doctors or by psychologists. Anyway, so I work with him, and within a few weeks of working with him, we clear that whole trauma from when he's a little kid, and he's like free. And then he's starting to be happier, and he's going into the world, and he's connecting with people and having a good time. And his wife sees him, and they start to reconnect. Cut to, oh, he also had never been able to express himself, and he had wanted to be a writer, and he'd wanted to be a singer, and he'd always felt like he was afraid to be seen. And I think, when you have that kind of a traumatic thing, sometimes it is hard to be seen, and so we worked on that. Now he's back with his wife. He is recording and putting out videos of recording music, singing and playing music, and he's writing. And he's got his writing is in flow, and he's got a writing partner, and it's this really wonderful, wonderful thing. And when he got back with his wife, for a minute, his wife was, or I wouldn't say a minute, but like when he first got back with her, she was still operating in the old paradigm. So she was still bringing in that struggle. So on the next session we had after he'd gotten back with her, he tells me about this. So I give him a couple things to do. And within that week, between that session and the next session, he does the things and his wife transforms. So I never coached his wife. I just coached him, and he just became he did what I suggested, and she totally transformed. So now their relationship is joyful and full of appreciation and sexy and fun and playful, and a totally different relationship than they've ever had. It's the relationship they both had wanted, but never knew how to get to. So that's like one example. Another guy, he had been captain of the police in a very large metropolitan area, and and he'd also been in the Vietnam War. He was older, and he had seen, his best friend killed right in front of him. So he had a tremendous grief and tremendous PTSD. He'd been involved with the Manson murders. Like, he just had a lot of stuff going on through his whole, he was involved as the police, not in, so he'd been the investigator on the Manson murders and all this kind of stuff, one of them. Anyway, so when I meet him, the first session, he's got all this grief, he's got PTSD. By the end of the first session, the grief was gone. Within a few weeks, like two or three more sessions, the PTSD was gone. By the time I'd done, I have like a little program that I do of a few weeks, depending on what somebody needs. Depends on, everybody's different, but with him, there was I think it was 9 weeks. By the time we were like at the 7-week thing, he's like, Karen, I don't know what you're doing to me. I wake up, I'm so happy. I just want to hug everybody. I'm like a fucking fairy. I don't know what it is. I just feel so good. My friends don't even recognize me anymore. They're making fun of me, but I don't care. I just feel so good, And I'm like, that's great. And what was also cool is he had a son who was living with him, who had been living with him for years and who had been in depression since he was a teenager. And the son was like in his 50s. So he'd been there for a while in this depression. And he told me about his son, like on the 5th or 6th session. He'd never even mentioned him. I didn't even know he was there. And when he told me about it, I said, okay, so tell me how you're handling him. And I listened, and I said, okay, would you be willing to try such and such? And I tell him what to do, and he tries it. The next week he comes to me and he says, you're not going to believe this. And I said, what? And he said, so I'm doing the things I'm doing the things you tell me to do. And I'm just doing the things. I stopped doing the things you told me not to do, and I'm doing only the things you tell me to do with regards to my son. So I'm with my son. We're at the dinner table, and my son goes, "Hey, Dad." He goes, uh, "I'm feeling a lot better." And my client goes, "What do you mean you're feeling better? You're taking different meds? What's going on?" And he's like, "No, no, no. It's not the meds." He goes, He's like, "Dad, I've just seen you change. I've seen you change, and then the way you're treating me. I just want you to know I have a job interview tomorrow."
Wow.
And his dad was like, "This is like the first job since I don't even know if he ever had a job." And his dad was like, "You got a job interview?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna go on the job interview, and I feel excited about it." And his dad, my client, was like, he could not contain himself. He was like hugging him and picking him up, and it was so cute. And he was so excited because, sorry, he was so excited because this was such a change, and it was no effort for him to do it. Another client, uh, he's been married and he loves his wife, but they hadn't been having sex for a while, and his wife was getting very negative and critical. And so I told him what to do, and he sends me a message 3 days later. Karen, he goes, "I was doing exactly what you said to do." And he goes, this is the scenario. He says, "I was with my wife doing what you said to do. She says to me, 'I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, it's working. Take my pants off.'" And he said that their relationship has completely changed. Um, he was he was in a job he didn't like. Now he's in the same job, and he loves it, and he can't stop loving it, and he thinks he doesn't even want to leave it anymore. He just loves it so much, even though he had hated it for decades, or years anyway. I don't know if it's that old, but for a long time since he's had it, he hated it, and now he loves it. Their whole marriage has transformed, and then he has been getting more abundant, and like he got a mentor who's the wealthiest guy in his community that came to him and offered to mentor him. Like this kind of stuff happens over and over and over again. Another one of my clients is in retirement and is disabled, and so they don't have a certain amount of money that was coming to them every month. And then they started having all these great creative ideas, and now they have a huge company that has bought into their ideas. And so now not only are they getting more money, but they're living their life on purpose, and feeling like they're contributing in a way that they didn't know how to contribute before. Another person was on the way to getting a dialysis. I don't mean in the car, but like his doctor said, you're gonna need a dialysis in the next week or two. Started working with me, and now the last time he went to the doctor's just this week, the doctor said, "No, you don't need it." So stuff like the body is so responsive when you start to shift your emotions into a higher zone, and 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 your ability when you are in that higher zone to connect to those you love. One of the other things that happened was with my dad. He had died in 90, I think in 91, or no, 90, like maybe 2000 or something like that. He died somewhere around there. I don't even remember because I was in a fog when he died, because that was also when Johnny died. And but anyway, so my dad died, and I did not perceive him until I started to get into this more place of alignment. Johnny had already been in my life. Johnny was teaching me. I was getting more and more connection with my spirit. I was feeling better. And one night I was writing out things that felt really good for me. So I was writing about I don't even remember what it was, but it was something that felt good, and I was probably writing for like 2 hours. So as when you write and it's something that it's so beautiful to you that you're sobbing while you write it. That's kind of where I was. So I'm sobbing and I'm writing. And then I realize it's kind of late, so I'm going to go to bed. So I get up and I go into the bedroom. And the minute I go into the bedroom, I feel my dad. And I know it's him. And the whole room is thick with love. And it's his love. And I can feel he's proud of me. And it was so undeniable. It was so palpable. And I could feel there were all these other energies there as well that I didn't know who they were, but they were there as well. But I got my dad, and he was saying, "I'm so proud of you. I love you so much. I've always loved you." And then he started like telling me how proud of all these things that he knew that I was doing, that I've been doing since, after he died. And then he has stayed with me. So like one of the things, my mom, she's now, doesn't have my dad, and she's in her 80s now. And they were married 43 years. They would have been still married probably, but now he died 20 years ago, more or less. So he suggested to me that that I get everybody that loves my mom, my all my relatives, all her friends, the people that worked with her, neighbors that knew her, anybody that loves her, to write a letter of what they appreciated about her to her, but send it to me. So I got maybe 40 different people sending this, because the word eulogy, it actually means the study of good, the study of good. And I had seen somebody use the word eulogy like after somebody died, and I had thought, why wait till somebody dies to give them a eulogy? Why wait to study their good after they're dead? Let's do it now. So I got so, and then my dad gave me that idea. And so then I get all these people's emails, and then I went to a company, I think it's called Blurb, and they made a hardback book, and everybody sent their pictures. So I put a picture of my mom on the book, and then I put pictures of everybody that she knows and loves with their letters, everybody's letter and their picture, and then the next letter and the next picture. And so, like, when I was doing it, my heart was so filled up, because I'm reading about my mom, things that I didn't even know, because some of these people knew her before I was born. Some of these people had experiences with her that I never had. They knew her at her age, when, like, they were peers with her as opposed to being their daughter. And so, or they worked with her, which, I never saw her at work. So it was so beautiful for me. I got my vibration, or my energy, my love for my mom increased so much. And I realized my dad was doing this as much for me as it was for my mom, because now I could love her even more fully. But then I gave the book to my mom, I gave it to my brother, I gave the book to any of the 40 people or so that wanted it, and I have one too. And so now, if she wants to, she can just pick up the book and read somebody talking about something great that she did, or how she changed their life, or what they love about her, and see their picture, and it's just like, it's such a great little thing to do for somebody. And I think the company I used was called blurb.com. So that's kind of like, my dad has come in these ways. And I feel Johnny comes in all the time. Johnny and my dad are probably the two I feel the most, but I feel anybody that dies, comes to me. I just want to share this one story, and then I'll go back to let you talk, because I'm like so talky.
Okay.
I was home one morning. It was actually in the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. And I woke up, and I had so much energy, and I thought, I've got to dance. But I didn't want to get out of bed, so I had my phone there. I got my phone. Actually, I sleep with my phone in the other room, but I brought my phone in the room, and I just started playing dance music on my phone. And so I'm dancing in the bed, like, just, lying down, but dancing. And I'm dancing, and I can feel all these energies of all these people dancing around me. And I don't know who they are, but they're having fun. And what they're saying was, oh my God, it's so great to be here. It's so great to be non-physical. We all loved each other. We all are here together. It's the perfect way, because nobody suffered. It was just bam. And I didn't know what they were talking about. And so I had no idea. And then I go back to sleep eventually. And then I wake up, and I'm on Facebook, and I see a post that somebody made about somebody who came in and shot a gay nightclub in Florida. And all of a sudden I went, oh my God. And they all were right there. And they were like, yeah, that was us. It was the perfect way to die. And I'm like, what? And I'm listening to them, and they're saying it was a perfect way to die. We're doing what we love. We're with the people we love. We were having so much fun. And then boom, we're out of there, and we were all ready to go, and we all wanted to go together. And I didn't tell anybody, because I thought, oh, this is so politically wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But because I don't want anybody to go shoot anybody. That's not what I'm talking about. I want peace in the world. But they weren't suffering. And so this keeps happening, when you hear things in the news. I don't really watch the news, but if I hear something like that, I often have felt the person, and then I'll hear the news and I go, oh, that's what it is. And I marvel at how they all want to talk to me. Like how easy it is to talk to. Somebody went, I live on top of a mountain, and people say, aren't you like scared to be here when you're all alone? And I was like, nah, I'm never alone. And that people are like, is COVID hard for you? Is it like, nah, I'm never alone, because I have so much entertainment from non-physicals, because they are sexy, they are funny, they're loving, they're playful, and so I've just, they're my teachers.
Oh,
Them
yes.
them them and dogs.
I love it. 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 Oh, well, they come to you because your vibration is so high. It's easy to connect. It's so easy to connect. And so, and what you're bringing to the physical is how do we raise our vibration so that we can have that beautiful connection. And the message that our loved ones, when they transform, transmute, when they go to that next level, non-physical level, they're happy, they're filled with joy, they're in nirvana, they're in the best place possible, and that should help us in our hearts, right? And to, that's such a beautiful gift that you're giving people who are grieving, to know that their loved ones are happy and vibrant and always around them, always, always.
Yeah, there's no time that you're not connected to everyone, even people you don't remember or don't even consciously know. There's no time that you're not connected. And I want to say one thing is that, if you are grieving, you don't have to rush to feel better. It's okay. Where you are is perfect. But there is the possibility of, whether it's gradual or whether it's sudden, there's the possibility of feeling better and better. And when you get into that spot where you're, even if you aren't in it consistently, I'm in a really consistent state of love, but even if you're not in it consistently, when you start to feel good, you start noticing things. Oh, there's that bird that was my dad's favorite bird, and it's right here coming and looking at me and going away, and coming and look at me and going away. And you start to see little things of evidence. One of my friends, one of my friends always told me I was just like his mom, and I never had met his mom, and um, and we had been friends. We would see each other like every couple of months. Like we didn't have like a whatever. It was just like very casual every once in a while. And I had used this cream that pops out from the top, and on the top it formed a heart. And I had thought, oh my God, the universe is romancing me. And I hadn't seen my friend for months, like a long time, but I kept feeling like, email that to him, email that to him. And I was like, why? I don't want to talk to him. I haven't talked to him. He should talk to me. I don't do it. Email him with that. So I email him and say, hey, how are you? I just saw this picture and I felt compelled to send it to you. It says the universe, I said, I think the universe is romancing me. He pits back, he goes, Karen, do you remember how I told you how much you remind me of my mother? And I said, yeah. And he goes, my mom passed away and I'm back east helping my family, with all of her stuff. And then I felt her so clearly, and I realized she had been compelling me to send it to him. And I realized it was her, and she told me this whole thing about him. And I wrote it in his, where I have his contact information. I wrote all the stuff she was telling me down. And I didn't want to tell him then because he was in a state of grief, and he was, trying to handle stuff. But he said after, we just went back and forth, and I just told him basic some basic stuff, not to like overwhelm him or anything. It was very gentle. But he said after that, his mom's favorite bug was ladybugs, and they started seeing ladybugs everywhere. Like they were just like attacking the car kind of thing. And so he was like, yeah, I think we are seeing her, but we wouldn't have known that it was possible if you hadn't. And so then his whole family asked him to bring some of his mom's stuff to me. So I got some of he when he came back to town, he brought these things of hers that he gave to me, different clothing and different stuff like that. And it was so beautiful and so sweet.
Mm.
And that law of thermodynamics, I had not looked up that law. And this guy was a Harvard grad, deep, brilliant, really brilliant guy. So we went to dinner after this, like several months after that email exchange. And he says, so Karen, he goes, you're saying that, he said, he goes, it seems like you have some connection with my mom, but how can that be? How can you when she's dead? Like, how can you? And he goes, I need a scientific answer. And I was like, all right. So I just said to her, what should I tell him? You know, in my head. And then that's when she said, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transmuted or transformed. And he put it, you know, he was like eating, stops chewing, puts his fork down, and he goes, that's the only answer that could have sufficed, or something like it was in that vein.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, she knew it. I said, I didn't know that. I knew it. I mean, I'm sure I learned it, but I didn't have that line memorized. She gave it to me because she knows you, because she loves you.
Wow. She knew that would resonate for him. That was the only answer. Well, Karen, thank you so much. I could sit here and listen to you for days. I would love to have a pajama party with you and just listen to you all night long. That would be
Oh my
like so
God,
fun.
pajama party would be so fun.
Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah. Well, I'll have to, once us authors can all kind of congregate somewhere, we can have a pajama party.
That would be
So tell everyone how the two names of your books, because you have two books, and how to people could contact you if they want to.
okay. This is my second book. It's called Effortless Enchantment, and it's a memoir of magic and magnetism and miracles. And it has some of the same stories that I might have told. And so, I told new ones too, and it might have new ones. It definitely has new ones. So that's the second book, and it's a memoir, and it's a fun book. But the memoir really is about the intersection between my life and spirit. And so there's a lot of stuff in there about how to get into connection. And this book was my first book. It's called Chronic Pleasure, and it's about using the law of attraction to transform fatigue and pain into vibrant energy and chronic pleasure. And that's basically how I healed my body. I had to fire every doctor that I was working with, and fire the psychologists and the psychiatrists because they were meaning well. I knew they cared, but they were keeping me sick. And I ended up working my own intuitive magic, partly guided by Johnny and partly guided by other not my spirit, that gave me this incredible healing where I no longer have narcolepsy. I live in chronic pleasure. My adrenals are completely healed. My thyroid is balanced. My hair has grown thicker. My eyesight is improved. My skin is improved. My flexibility has improved. I mean, it's like, it's crazy all the ways that your body improves when you really get into a state of steady appreciation and love. So if you want either of those books, I'd feel happy to email you either one of them. But what I would ask for you to do is send me an email to Karen, Karen, Lorre, Lorre, at me, like you and me, me.com. Karen Lorre, Lorre, at me.com. And if you put in the subject line, you know, your books, and then just put your name in the body of the email. You don't even have to write much, but just say whatever your name is. That just so I know, because some people's emails are like fy632@gmail.com or whatever, you know. So it's
Yep.
like, and I was like, well, I'd like to know something. So yeah, that would be great. And then I'd feel happy to send you my book. And I just want you to know that the people you love and your spirit never leave you. They're always loving you. They're always approving of you. They're always proud of
That is so beautiful. So beautiful. And I can attest to your books. I love the audio books because I love listening to your voice talking to me.
you.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So Karen, thank you so much. Like I said, this was just a fun thing for us to get together. And I really I've known Karen for quite a while now, many, many months, and have read her books and her work. And it's just so extraordinary. She's got extraordinary stories, but it all comes from, it is all the transformation that has occurred in her life, and for her to tap into her spiritual beingness and to be able to use this for anybody who would be interested in working with her. Absolutely. Get with Karen. I think I'm probably going to end up getting with Karen just because you're just amazing. You're beautiful. Just being in your presence just vibrates everything up. And I thank you for that. I've just been sitting here just in such a beautiful space and beautiful energy, and it comes through the waves, comes through. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you. I feel so appreciative of you. You know, you're such a good listener. And I love the story about your brother. And it feels so perfect that you birthed him through you to benefit the world. And I just feel so happy for the people that you work with to work with you. You're such a gift, and your heart is so pure, and you have so much love, and you're so fun. So thank you so much for asking me. I feel really blessed to know you and to be part of this.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, well, I'm going to turn off the recording here, and Karen, I will get you everything.
Thank you so much, Pat.
Love you. Hi there. Thank you for stopping by our Healing Family Grief channel, where grief can transform into peace, purpose, and even joy. That is the intention. So as host of the Healing Family Grief channel, my goal is to provide insight, inspiration, and hope for people who are grieving a deep loss, or for the people who want to provide support for those who are struggling on their grief journey. If you like what you hear, please like us, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel to hear more. Also, feel free to share any episodes that you feel could be helpful to someone you know. For more information about the Confident Grief Coach School, or to find a grief coach, or perhaps to order one of my free ebooks, please check out our website at www.healingfamilygrief.com.